Hello, Ann Webster here, talking today about RIR. Okay, so what is RIR? RIR is an evidence-based practice, and it means response interruption and redirection. And basically what it is that it deals with any behavior that teachers or instructors think interferes with a child's learning or development or could be seen as disruptive. So what do? First, well, they identify the behavior that they think needs to be dealt with. Basically, anything that needs to be stopped, that they think needs to be decreased or discontinued. So what do? They observe the behavior. They look for antecedents. They look to see when and where this behavior is taking place. They look to see how many people are around, how close people are to the child, if it happens during any specific activity, what the noise level is, how close people are, if it happens with certain people. And then, well, they come up with a hypothesis, okay? So a hypothesis basically just states everything that they've already observed, but it has to include, like I said, a lot of the antecedents. It has to include any immediate consequences, if there are any. Sometimes there aren't. It describes the behavior itself and its perceived function, if they think that the child is trying to gain something or if it's purely sensory. And they also come up with an alternative behavior, what they would like the child to do instead of what they are currently doing, which is not good. And the important thing to remember with this alternative behavior is that it has to have the same sensory outcome that they think the child is trying to get currently, which means that, for example, if the child is displaying pica behaviors, well, then the outcome that they are proposing would have to have something obviously to do with an edible outcome. So they would have to propose an alternative activity that would have an edible reinforcement or objective. Or if the child is displaying SIBs, well, then obviously an alternative behavior or alternative activity would have to include something that would keep the child's hands busy. And when I mean child, I mean technically it's probably best that this starts at a younger age, but it is designed for students aged 3 to 21. Okay, so then they start observing. So they have to look at, okay, how often is this behavior occurring and when? So does it only occur at lunchtime, or does it only occur at recess, or does it just happen randomly throughout the day? And when it happens, how long does it happen for? Does it happen for a few seconds? Does it happen for a few minutes? All of that they have to look for and start keeping track of. And then they keep track of this for at least a few days. It can be up to a few weeks. It just depends. And after that, then they start implementing the strategy that they came up with. So they start sitting down and trying to introduce this alternative behavior or teaching this new behavior to the student. And of course, they start by presenting the student with something that the student, well, presenting the student with a reinforcement for engaging in this new behavior. And the reinforcement obviously has to be something that's highly motivating. And of course, when they first start the program, they only require the student to engage in this new behavior for a few seconds at a time. And then, of course, throughout the duration of, the implementation, as time goes on, the time required for the student to engage in the practice and to earn the reinforcement, of course, will increase over time. And then eventually, whatever the requirements are for, meeting the goals will be looked at. And then at the end, they will decide, if this is working, if RIR is the right program or practice for this child, and they will look at the data and see if it's working, or if something else needs to be implemented, or if a different procedure needs to be used, and then that's how it works. So I hope this was helpful and was not too brief. So thank you.